Good afternoon and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. As you know, today it is Wednesday, August 28th, which means one thing. We are back for new seasons of what I would call the RPL feeder series, is what I would call it. It is Tier 2, Tier 3, and F2. Tier 2, looking to kick off its 14th season, 18th overall if you include F1.5. Tier 3 will kick off its second season, and F2 will hit a milestone, 20 seasons of action, and we will pick it off right here tonight, going over tonight, going over the preview of what is coming to light. As usual, Ty and Iron Wolf on hand for the live feed of the preview coming up of what is up for this coming seasons this weekend. And this will be an interesting one. So, we'll start off with the calendars for the upcoming seasons. So tomorrow is the start of Season 2 of Tier 3. And let's take a look at the calendar here. So, for the first round, the season opener, they will be at Australia, racing around Melbourne. Then round 2 will be Singapore. Then round 3 comes the unique track of the Losail circuit in Qatar. Then one of the quickest lap tracks on the calendar, Austria, for round 4. Then going to the longest track on the calendar of Spa-Francorchamps for the midway point. Then for the second half, round 6, they'll be racing around the technical track of Zandvoort in the Netherlands. Then the Temple of Speed of Monza for round 7. Round 8 will be the Miami circuit at the USA in Florida. Then the penultimate round will be at Interlagos in Brazil. And last but not least, rounding up the season in round 10 will be at Suzuka. So, that is the Tier 3 schedule. So, just for a quick refresher, George Alp Williams wound up winning the inaugural title, 230 points to wrap up his season. Invade was second at 122, and Mythic finished in third with 94. For the constructors, Red Bull dominated the championship with 327. Ferrari finished in second with 192, and McLaren finished in third with 131. That is the schedule and what was the back from before. But what is in play for this weekend? So what is going on for Tier 3? Well, let us take a look. We'll start off with the defending champions, Red Bull Racing. Now, initially, the Red Bull Racing team was supposed to have Garage and RPL Ardell for their roster. Unfortunately, Ardell just not even 24 hours before the start of the stream, Ardell had dropped to reserve on mutual standpoint. Therefore, the V-Carb driver of Alex Norris will be joining in for Red Bull. That is the Red Bull pair. So next up for the Mercedes, we have Lennon. Lennon last season has some experience in Williams and I believe a race or two in Aston Martin. I was curious to see how he will fare in the Mercedes. And his teammate is going to be Patrick F1, who is moving from the Alpine team to join the Mercedes. Next up is the Ferrari pair. Ferrari will be retaining Invade, who finished runner-up in the Season 1 championship. He's looking to push for a championship fight, and his teammate is going to be Polish Hammer. That will be a unique team, no doubt about it. For the McLaren, McLaren did have some TP change of hands. That being Hunted stepping away as the TP, with Jack Miles jumping in as the TP. And for the McLaren team, it is going to be Jake Bandy, who has had a couple of races from the Alpine Academy last season, but he'll be partnered with Turbo Jacob. I believe that's what his thing was called. So top 4 teams down and four promising duos. Next up for the Aston Martin, we have Drift King. Drift King has had a couple of races under his belt in Tier 3 last season. It is curious to see how well he will fare. And his teammate is going to be Optical. Optical moved from, in Season 1, started in Alpine, then moved up into McLaren after Freddie was banned from the tier. Now he is going to be moving to the Aston Martin team. It will be quite interesting to see how Optical will fare in the change of machinery. Now for the Alpine team. Now, Alpine did change up with one of their drivers. McLaren driver Mythic has been moved down to the Alpine team, and his teammate is going to be newcomer D Summers. This will be a unique change for Mythic, moving from one of the fastest cars to basically a midfield team car, and a newcomer to the field as well. It's interesting to see how he will fare going forward. Now for the Williams team, we have a new driver. I hope I am not butchering his name here. Neki? I think that's what it is. I do apologize if I got your name, if I butchered your name. I do apologize for that. But his teammate, you know him, you love him, some of you may hate him, but it is the man, the myth, the legend, Leon the Miner. That will be a unique pair, to say the least. Now for the Visa Cash App. Now with Alex Norris, he was supposed to be in the team, but after Ardell canceled his contract mutually, he is in the Red Bull. That means Goat Lee will be, well, for the time being, by himself. Because just check the driver contracts, and Blue Gagi has not found a second driver yet to partner Goat Lee, but stay tuned for more developments on that, and I'm willing to bet you he will probably have somebody in mind by the time our first race comes around tomorrow night. Now for Kick Sauber. Now, Kick Sauber has another driver that moved from the Alpine Academy and is joined up with Ferrari Academy. It is SV. Now, SV not only is pulling duty in racing in Tier 3, but he is also an F2 team principal. More info on that as we get through that later on. Now SV's teammate is another driver who, I believe, had some experience last season in Tier 3. I do apologize, I don't watch Tier 3 as much as I hoped for, so I am a little on the illiterate side. I was hoping Egg would be here to help out on it, but unfortunately he is out. But SV's teammate is Gary Gator. Gary Gator, a quite an interesting name, I will admit to that. But yeah, that is the Kick Sauber team. And now to our final team. Our final team is the Haas team, and this is a wild lineup. So Valkyrie is retained for the Haas team, going for another season. She's had some flashes of strong running when she had the reserve in Ferrari, but she's mainly been hanging around in the Haas car. I'm curious to see how she'll wind up facing through season 2. Her teammate is Dano. Dano, who has an experience from Tier 2 under the F1.5 name, a driver that I've raced against and worked with. So this will be interesting to see how he will do going into this. So that leads to the question: who is the best pair and who is the worst pair for the Now going into predictions, I would say currently, in regards to, I would say for the weakest pair, since there is no second car at this time, the weakest pair is going to be the V-Carb. I'm sorry, Goat Lee. But hopefully Gagi and Cookie will find a second driver to be in that V-Carb, and maybe they may change my mind. But for right now, they are the weakest pair. Now, as for the strongest pair, now, even though I am a co-team principal of the Alpine Academy, and even though Jake Bandy is a good driver, Turbo Jacob, I mean, in my eyes, he's a bit new, a little bit on the unproven side from my perspective, but it's curious to see what will happen with the McLarens as the season goes forward. But in my humble retrospect, I think the strongest pair at this present moment, I would say it's between two teams. I think it is going to be between the Ferrari pair of Invade and Polish Hammer and the Red Bulls of Garage and Alex Norris. Now, Ferrari, Invade, very strong, very consistent driver. He has shown time and time again that he is willing to run within striking distance of a championship. Could even push for a championship if he needs to. Polish Hammer, he raced in Haas and Kick Sauber last season. He's getting his glory days shot in the Ferrari. I believe that Polish Hammer will exceed some expectations and be a good driver and a good teammate for Invade. As for Red Bull, Garage, he raced in V-Car for a bit, then Red Bull near the end. I think Garage is a prominent driver, could be a slight dark horse in regards to the championship. Alex Norris, I believe, could be a bit on the untested side, but I think he has the capability of showing what he can do. So looking at that is my opinion on the best pair and the least pair. Now, who do I think is going to be winning the championship? Now, to me, I see 4 drivers being good contenders to win the Season 2 championship. And I believe they're from each of the 4 big teams. From Red Bull, I see Garage as a good contender to win the championship. From Mercedes, I think if he pushes well and keeps it consistent, I could picture Lennon pulling a championship run if possible. In McLaren, Jake Bandy, he's another guy that could be a strong front runner for the championship as well. And last but not least, from the Ferrari, like I said that he is very consistent and could possibly push for a championship run. Heck, honestly, I think he's my favorite to win the championship, because honestly, from his time in Tier 2 and his time in Tier 3, I think a championship is overdue for him. But I am going to safely predict Invade to be the Season 2 champion. And because, like I said, he's had a lot of experience in Tier 2. He's had some great experience in Tier 3. He was runner-up pretty much from start to finish in the season. I think a Drivers' Championship for Invade is well overdue. And even though I'm a co-team principal, even though I'm the co-TP of McLaren and could potentially show bias for Jake Bandy, but I am if I had to use the phrase properly, I really don't care for this. I am smoking on the Invade pack. No doubt in my mind. I'm smoking the Invade pack for sure. So, that is Tier 3. So, let's take a look at Tier 2. Now, this is Season 14 for Tier 2, but if you include F1.5, which was the original name for Tier 2, they're going into their 18th season, but under the Tier 2 moniker, it's Season 14. Here is where they're kicking it off. So, the season opener will be at Bahrain. Then, for round 2, they will be racing around the streets of Baku. Round 3 will be the technical track of Zandvoort. Then, Barcelona, Catalunya. Now, supposedly, the infamous bump in turn 12 is gone. Supposedly. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But that is round 4. The Temple of Speed of Monza is round 5 to round up the first half of the season. Then for the second half, it is Suzuka for round 6, Singapore for round 7, Imola for round 8, Losail for round 9, and Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi is the season finale. So, let's recap with Season 13. So, Season 13, the Drivers' Champion was JTK, beating John for second place, and Kipu wound up finishing in third. In the Constructors, Red Bull, once again, continues being the dominant car in the Tier 2 series. They won it by only 18 points over McLaren, and Ferrari finishing third, with Mercedes very close behind. Now, let's take a look at our group. Who is on our group for Tier 2? Well, let's start with Red Bull. Now, Red Bull has a unique pair going into it. So, leaving Ferrari Academy and going to Red Bull is J&T Gaming. J&T Gaming, an experienced racer. I could be incorrect. Did J&T win a championship yet? No, he has not won a championship yet. Oh, no, yeah, he did. He won the Season 12 championship. So the Season 12 champion, moving from Ferrari into Red Bull. This will be an interesting one. I mean, he did wind up having to leave as a TP for Ferrari, leaving Tadpole and Invade to be in charge of it. And since Invade's watching, he's probably still feeling a little down on J&T leaving. But J&T's teammate is the co-team principal of Red Bull Academy, Blue Gagi. Yeah, you know it. Blue Gagi, who at one point, a couple seasons ago, was basically the butt of the joke and was a bit of a meme, was potentially a possible meme for RPL in his racing. But so far he has shown some stride and some flashes of brilliance. I cannot believe I'm saying those words. But it is crazy to see what Blue Gagi could do in one of the best cars in the game. So for Mercedes, Red Fire retained for another season. He'll be back in it in Mercedes, but he's not going to be but he'll have a new teammate though. He will have Vodka with him. Vodka leaving Alpine last season. He'll be going into the Mercedes car. This will be a unique pair, and we'll have to wait and see on which one of them will come out on top between them. Now we have Ferrari. Now Ferrari has had a few changes. We have Josh 433, a driver that I've raced against in F2 last season. This guy has great consistency, some good pace. I'm curious to see how well he will do, and I think he may do pretty solid in the Ferrari car. But his teammate is a bit of a shocker. RPL Zakaria will be his teammate. That's right, Zakaria raced in Tier 1 earlier in the Tier 1 Season 11 season. He wanted to move down to Tier 2 because he was not happy with how he was handling and performing in Tier 1. He believed his pace is not up there to stay in Tier 1. He wanted to move down to Tier 2, and I think with him being a Ferrari, this is probably a very good decision to try to find his groove back. Next is the McLaren. So McLaren they have John retained for the season. He is going to be sticking around. He was able to put a very strong fight against JTK last season. In the end, he did miss a couple of races, a couple of which were no fault of his own because of internet being a jerk to him. But John retained for next season, and we will see how he will handle with a new teammate. That new teammate being RPL Jordan. Now Jordan was in the Mercedes Academy, is now moved into McLaren. He wants to prove himself in faster machinery, and now he has the chance to do it. Next up for Aston Martin, we have Sam Gino in the Aston Martin. He's raced solidly last season in Tier 2. He's even raced a couple of times in Tier 1. I think he's a solid driver. I believe with him in the Aston Martin team, I see him at least getting himself quite a few points as the season moves forward. His teammate is another driver that's done solidly well in Tier 2 last season and had some experience in Tier 1, that being C. Davies. C. Davies is another driver looking to really branch out and try to prove himself, and him and Aston Martin is a good, solid run. Next up for the Alpine, Bonkers 5. Back at it for a full season in Tier 2. Now, who can forget with Bonkers, his storied history in Tier 2 under the F1.5 name, racing in McLaren, was actually decently dominant in the McLaren up until he moved up to, I believe it was Tier 1, or moved to another, no, he moved to Ferrari. at that point. But with him in the Alpine, he is looking to really make an impact on his return back to Tier 2. His teammate is a newcomer, that being T-Tor. Now, T-Tor, I don't know much about. He joined the league a couple of weeks ago, so he is untested and unproven. So we'll see how he winds up handling himself there. Next up for the Williams, we have another man, myth, legend. Probably not as legendary as Leon Minor, Wavy Knife. Wavy Knife has had quite a lot of experience in Tier 2 over the years, has some Tier 1 experience as well, and I believe, and also since he is the Mercedes team principal, it'll be interesting to see what he is capable of in the Williams. I wouldn't suspect that Wavy will probably surprise us by getting at least a couple of points. His teammate is going to be Kieran. Kieran, I believe he's raced a few times last season in Tier 2. That's a Williams pair. Decently good pair, to say the least. Next up is the V-Carb. So V-Carb has Kippu, moving from McLaren to V-Carb. Now, Kippu finished third in the championship last season, so he'll take that experience and consistency over to V-Carb, and maybe, if push comes to shove, V-Carb could be a strong player in the midfield. Maybe they might take a peek and sniff the tailpipes of the top cars. But, speaking of experience, he won't be alone, because Kippu will have Season 6 Tier 2 champion Blonde by his side as his teammate. So quite an experienced pair between the two of them. So I say V-Carb could be a strong contender in that midfield. Next up is the Kick Sauber. Now, Kick Sauber has Robin Brain. Robin Brain has had a bit of a checkered experience in Tier 2 over the course. Has been involved in quite a few incidents. Hopefully he'll snap out of that little scuff and try to run really solid in the Kick Sauber. His teammate is Ikazuchi. Ikazuchi I don't know much about. I've raced against him a couple of times in F2. I don't know how good he is in regards to the F1 cars. Maybe Invade could potentially shed some more light in that. Hopefully on that. I'll wait on that little piece there. But now let's move on to the final team. That team being the Haas team. Now Haas, they got Paulo God in the car. Paulo, I believe, was in Ferrari for a bit last season, then moved down to Haas. So it's experiencing to see with Paulo, an experienced driver, past Tier 2 winner. I believe he could easily get at least a few points to his name. And he is going to be partnered with Trat Racer. Trat Racer, I don't know his experience in F1 cars, but I know he is very experienced in F2. So he is really good in regards to that. And Invade, thank you for that little update. Consistent point scorer and will finish the race, but does have a bit of pace. That is his comment on Ikazuchi. Thank you for that. Now, let's see who I think is going to be the strongest pair and who's going to be the weakest pair. Well, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but it's obvious to say the strongest pair is going to be, it's going to be Red Bull, But I think in regards to how the two themselves will fare, I think J&T, who's the previous champion, he's going to be showing the biggest light of strength for the team coming into the season. Blue Gagi, this is going to sound super controversial, but I think Blue Gagi could pull off at least one win in Tier 2. You heard it right. I think Blue Gagi can do it. I think he can do it. But as for other contenders that I think will be in there, that will probably be good for stronger pairs. Ferrari, Josh 433, a solid driver. Zakaria, an experienced driver in Tier 1, will be bringing that experience into Tier 2. They're another contender as well. And the McLaren, John, and Jordan, I think they will be a decent contender as well. Now, as for the weakest pair, and I'm going to be shooting myself in the foot on this one. I am going to be shooting myself in the foot. But I think Alpine could be the weakest pair. And the reason for it is because you have Bonkers5, who is returning to his first full-time season in Tier 2 in a long while. So, and he's had some okay races, but had a bit of some misses as well as T-Tour being untested and unproven. That's why I'm shooting myself in the foot and saying that the Alpine pair is looking to be the weakest pair at this present moment. Another pair that I believe that's also a contender for being the worst pair is going to be the Sauber team of Robin Brain and Nick Kazuchi. I just hope that they could easily pull it together and have some consistencies. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but those are what I put for the weakest pairs. But like I said, this is just my opinion. I could be proven wrong. I won't hold it against you if you guys prove me wrong and stuff. Now, the predictions on who is going to be winning the championship. Honestly, I see, just like with Tier 3, I see 4 people could be pushing for a championship. And crazily enough, as I said, like with Tier 3, it's one from each of the big 4. Ferrari, it could be push or shove with Josh and Zakaria. Either one of them could be a fighter to go for the championship. So this will be interesting, no doubt about it. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think either one of these two, push or shove, could go for a championship. Mercedes, Red Fire, could potentially push for a championship. He's shown decent consistency. He could, as long as he stays himself out from problems and be very more consistent running with the other teams, he could potentially push for a championship if he pushes it. But I think the main focus is on 2 teams and 2 drivers. From McLaren, you have John. Now, despite missing some of the races from last season because of problems and stuff like that, but whenever John does race, he is consistent, he is strong, and he has pulled off some wins to his name as well. He is a solid runner to go for a championship when push comes to shove. He just has to maintain. It's just his internet needs to maintain consistency and not screw him over like it did him last season. But in Red Bull, the other contender, basically the opponent in the other corner, is J&T Gaming. No offense to Blue Gagi, He's decent. I think he's got potential, but at this present time, I'm saying it in a controversial status, even though I said he could potentially pull a win. He could pull a win once this season in Tier 2. I don't think Blue Gagi will be a threat for a championship. His teammate G&T, he is a likely threat to win a championship. He's done it in Season 12, win the championship there for Ferrari. But now he's in Red Bull. And I think he can, the only way he can go is up for G&T. So I think G&T is a solid runner to go for a championship. So that's my opinion, though. So in review, G&T versus John. Those will be the two main fighters for the championship. But do not rule out Red Fire and either one of the Ferraris of Josh and Zakaria to potentially throw their hats in the ring as well. So, now we move on to F2. Now, F2 will be celebrating their 20th season of the championship. Now, I do not have the graphic for the season, but I have it in a DM courtesy of George here. So, the season opener for season 20 will be at Melbourne in Australia. Then it gets followed up with Portimao for round 2. Canada, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for round 3. The Miami Autodrome for round 4. Imola. I mean, you saw with Imola last season on the RPL streaming. If you haven't yet, check out the Imola F2 race from last season on our YouTube channel. Just type up RPL Formula 1 and you will see the craziness that was the feature race, where it wound up resulting with Minico winning the race with 3 wheels. Basically Lewis Hamilton to win a race. But Imola round 5. Then it will be China for round 6. Singapore, which would have been last season, which would have been season 19's finale. That did not happen because we did not get enough of attendance to run the race. Singapore will be round 7. Baku will be round number 8. Qatar will be round 9. And Yas Marina at Abu Dhabi will be the season 20 season finale. So yeah, kind of crazy to see Losail and Singapore show up on all 3 of the upcoming seasons. Kind of crazy to see all of that, you know? Oh! Actually, I just have, just before, yep, I just caught it to Invade. Just a bit of a developing news. Let me go back to the F1 23 cars. Here we go, back to the V-Carb. Just announced, was just recently put in by Blue Gagi, Spangly will be partnering Goat Lee in the V-Carb for Tier 3 Season 2. So that is our newest development there. Now, I believe if my memory's right with Spangly, Spangly raced quite a few times in Tier 3 last season. I think he was a decent runner in the sleight of hands in regards to it. So I would say, so I had V-Carb as my weakest pair, but I am going to be changing it now. So I am changing it back. The weakest pair for Tier 3 Season 2. Sorry, Invade. I'm going to say the Kick Sauber team with SV, who has had a very hit and miss season last season, more on the miss side. And Gary Gator, who I don't know much about. Hope you don't take that as offense, Invade, but yeah, that is my new. That's my new. Yeah, because Gary is new. Thank you. Okay, so well, let's go back to F2. So I just released the calendar. Let's go over what happened with season 19, because, like I said, we didn't have the season finale in Singapore because not enough people showed up to do the race. But Jack Miles, for the second time, is F2 champion. His most previous championship was in season 8 of F2. So now, almost 12 seasons later, he's F2 champion again, beating Skither. And then Josh 433 and SLR Metal were tied for third place. But Josh wound up getting the third place honors because he had 4 wins to Metal's 3. In constructors, Trident dominated the pack, winning the constructors championship. I believe that's the first time they've ever won a championship. They bested ART and Carlin, who tied for second place, but ART had the second place honors because they got 4 wins to Carlin's 3. And now let's take a look at the field. Who will be in what cars? Well, since I mentioned about Carlin being third place, we start with them. I don't think it matters which type of car it's going to be looking like, but it is going to be Invade and Wavy Knife teaming together in the Carlin car. This will be an interesting spectacle to see the Ferrari co-team principal and the Mercedes team principal working together. This will be a unique little partnership between the two of them. No doubt in my mind there. Next up is ART. So ART has Josh 433, who raced in ART last season. He has been retained by the team. Excuse me. So, but his teammate is going to be Cheese 2997. Now, Cheese raced. He raced Brazil last season. I'd say he's still new, a bit unproven to say the least in regards to that. But we'll see how he handles. Next up is Prima. And Prima is I believe is the only team to retain both their drivers. Blue Gagi will be in the Prima, and myself, Ty and Irewolf, on hand as his teammate. Now, Blue Gagi had, I think we could easily just say, had quite a Cinderella season on his hands. 1 win, 3 second place, and 1 third place, and 1 fastest lap, and he finished 6th in the championship. I won't beat around the bush with me. I had probably one of my worst seasons in F2, but oh shoot, I'm sorry, Invade. Invade's the team principal for it. I thought you were Cohen. Tadpole was the TP. Man, I feel so sorry. I feel embarrassed for getting that wrong. Sorry about that. But back to it. So, yeah, with myself, I will admit I had one of the worst seasons ever in season 19. The car was decent to me in some races, but bull to me in others. So, I mean, I did promise Gagi that season 20 will be better. I just hope I can. So high tech. So I will note that there is no second driver for high tech, but we have just one driver in there, that being Polish Hammer. Polish Hammer is going to be in the car. Is going to be in that car, but like I said, he has no teammate, so that's that right there. I mean, who could forget with Polish Hammer when he got lag obliterated by Egg in Jeddah? That resulted in Egg getting banned for the rest of the season. Yeah, that was just really bad there. So now we have the Dams team. Dams has Spangley in their field, and his teammate is True Streamer Boy. Spangley, I don't know much about him in regards to F2. I think these two basically are a bit of an unproven pair, but we'll have to wait and see in regards to that. Now, next up is Virtuosi, and I will automatically say this. Invicta Virtuosi, this is the strongest pair for F2 Season 20. You have two-time champion Jack Miles in the car, and his teammate is high-ranking, consistent runner Tadpole as his teammate. These two have been very... Tadpole has been very consistent last season, one of finishing, I believe, 4th in the championship, and Jack being the most recent champion. This is a deadly duo. This is a deadly duo, to be fair. Now, in regards to constructors, Virtuosi is looking to claim constructors. No doubt about it. This is a fiery pair, for sure. So next up is the PHM Racing, formerly known as the Charus team. SV is in there. So Invade is not Invade. SV is in the Charus car, and he's got CRE Dom as his teammate. Now, CRE Dom, I think Egg knows a bit about him, because Egg does have the CRE thing as his PFP. So, but he's not here. I wish he was, but it'll be interesting in regards to that pair. Now, the Constructors Champions, Trident, they got Shut Metal, who had a very strong season last season. If I recall correctly, he wound up missing out on 3rd to Josh, but they did tie. But Metal has been a very strong and consistent racer in F2 cars. And his teammate is also a solidly good driver, that being Track Racer. Would Trident like to retain their constructors? I mean, I would hope they would try to, but with Jack and Tadpole in the Virtuosi, that is going to be a high call to try to pull off. Next up is the VAR team, Van Amersfoort. Now, they got Valkyrie in the car. Now, Valkyrie is looking to get some more improvements for the upcoming season compared to last season. And her teammate, she's got a new teammate. This time, she's got Goat Lee partnering her. Goat Lee has had some consistent racing last season. I will admit, he and I did have a couple of clashes last season as well. But I think Goat Lee has some capability to do pretty good in season 20. And now for our final team, Campos. So Campos, we have Daniel Bueno, in the car. I have, and his teammate is Eric26. Now, these two are fairly new. I don't know much about either one of them, but we'll have to wait and see on how these two will handle in regards to racing. But these two, since I don't know much about them, I will have them labeled as basically like untested and unproven. But now, who is going to be the weakest pair out of this field? Well, I mean, if I included untested and unproven ability, like untested and unproven, I would put Campos as the weakest, but I don't want to be too harsh on two brand spanking new guys, so I wouldn't hold it against either one of them. So I would say the weakest pair, honestly, I'm sorry for me saying this, but I think the weakest pair is going to be PHM with SV and Dom. I mean, SV has like I said, he's had quite a bit of misses, especially in F2 as well. Dom has raced a couple of times, but he is, a bit mid. But so I think they'll be the weakest pair. But like I said, yeah, I read the thing, Faded. Like I said, that's why I didn't want to be too harsh on the two new guys of Eric and Bueno, but that's why I left them off, because the two are unproven, and I want to be fair, to those guys. But now, who do I think is going to be contenders to win the championship? Well, I see, and I think we have probably our biggest group out of it. But I see six people being contenders to win the championship. And we'll kick it off with the Campos, because I've been learning some more info from Faded Knights. One contender is the newcomer, Eric26. Now, apparently, according to Faded Knight, Eric26 on quite a few tracks is actually on par or faster than Metal. So I would say if he has the capability to back that up, I would say this is our first newcomer to be a contender for the championship. So, who else would be contenders for the championship? Well, we had the Trident. Oh, yeah. So we had the Trident of Shut Metal. So Shut Metal, I believe, has the capability of being a good contender to go for a championship. He has had some push and shove. He's had a one or two unfortunate races, but I think he is capable of potentially going for a championship. The next two is either one of the Virtuosi boys, Jack Miles and Tadpole. Could Jack go for a 3-time championship like Luke has done, or like Skither has done? It's possible. But could Tadpole also try to pull a surprise and win a championship? I mean, to be fair, I think Tadpole maybe winning an F2 championship could be a bit on the overdue side, but he has a very powerful teammate in Jack, so but
but I wouldn't rule out either one of them to be good contenders to go for a championship. Now, next up, let's see, where is he? Yes. The next contender to go for for the Drivers' Championship, Josh 433. Now, Josh, he has been really solid in regards to the season. He's had the most wins in season 19 with 4. And I believe if he maintains more consistency and even pulls off more podiums and even get a couple more wins that he did last season, he is another driver that could win the championship. So that's 5. Who's number 6? Well, this is a dark choice. But I think he could do it if he maintains his consistency and does not crack under the pressure against other people. Driver number 6 to go for a championship, and probably one of the most controversial calls ever in RPL. Blue Gaggi. Blue Gaggi, I think, could have the capability to push for a championship if he maintains his consistency, does not crack under the pressure, and can run and can try to pull off more consistent podiums and maybe get a couple more wins onto his belt. He has the possibility to do it, but as for his championship threat level, I would put him on the low end of the spectrum, but do not rule him out. I think it could happen, but I do not know. Well, that will conclude it for this preview of Season 3 Tier 2, Season 14 of Tier 2, and Season 20 of F2. So, as it is noted, as it was noted in the earlier in the stream, so we'll kick off this weekend's action of racing tomorrow night for Tier 3 for their season opener at Melbourne. That will be on the RPL Twitch. That will be going live at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. UK time. That is tomorrow. Friday, same time frame, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. UK time, will be Tier 2 Season 14's opener of Bahrain. Then, Season 20 of F2 will kick off Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. UK. They'll be racing at Melbourne in Australia. And for Tier 1, we will kick off the second half of the season at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. UK. And that will be at Hungary. Will Leo Lund continue his championship lead, keeping it rolling? Or will Cookie try to claw back some of that deficit? Well, I hope to see you guys keep staying in tune for the on the Twitch and on the RPL YouTube for all this weekend's racing. But for now, Ty and I'm Wolf signing off. Good night. Have a wonderful one.